Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about the Deeps in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires patch 5.2, the new Dwarf Mechanic, which Creative Assembly has publicly stated in their blog and their patch notes that it was designed to reward players who are looking to play tall as opposed to wide. Now, to be clear, Creative Assembly has stated publicly that Total War is designed around the idea of aggression as opposed to a more defensive playstyle, but I think it is a good idea to have a better system in place as opposed to just building an empire like this, for instance. This should not necessarily be the best way to play the game in a lot of ways, because this is utter rubbish. There's various things Creative Assembly could do on this. So playing tall, designing systems to reward playing tall, that's all well and fine. But, I'm saying this very clearly at the beginning of this video, playing tall should not be freaking synonymous with playing slow. If you're designing systems where I'm spending dozens and dozens of turns with very little to do with those systems for a long time, that's just dull as dirt. I'm sure some people will disagree on that. Don't get me wrong, I would prefer having long campaigns, but long campaigns where you're actually doing stuff. One of the issues that I can talk about with the Wood Elves, yes, I have Toggle Fog of War enabled as a mod. One of the issues that I fundamentally have with the Wood Elves, they have a lot of systems for playing tall, that's good. But a lot of those systems are just you wasting your freaking time in the campaign for dozens of turns. And this is one of my issues, the big issues with the Deep system. Because on one hand, it can be good, it can be interesting, but it takes so long to actually make it interesting that realistically, at least pre-patch, we have to see, you know, I have to play more campaigns, I have to play more turns, or I have to think about it. How is they handling a long campaign as just the shorter campaigns? Because a lot of campaigns for experienced players, you know, they start out challenging and then just like the highest level of challenges early on, later on they just falls off a cliff. Though that, so far from what I've played in this campaign, has changed significantly. But I'll do a video on that subject later on. Now, why do I mention that playing tall versus playing wide? Well, let's talk about how you access the Deeps, how you use them, what kind of benefits are on offer. First off, you have a new resource, High King Decrees. You start with one, or at least I started with one in this particular campaign as Karakadrin, and you use these to build structures that will allow you access to the Deeps. You build the Great Gate, it takes 1 turn, quite a bit of gold. Yes, it's very cheap right here, but it's 10,000 by default, and it costs 2 population surplus. And then the tier 3 version of it, which you don't need to build, but it's beneficial, only costs 12 gold, but takes 12 turns. That's fine. By the way, that's fine, but what I do dislike here, the upfront cost, the surplus points as well, and the fact that it's taking a building slot in a settlement building. Now, for what it is worth, you don't need to build this in just provincial capitals. I was wondering about that. No, you can build these in minor settlements as well, and get access to the Deeps. Very, very important system with respect to that. Good idea, good choice, good decision by Creative Assembly with respect to that. What do you get access in the Deeps? Well, when you build the Deeps, what you will have access to right off the bat, if I just open the building browser over here in the Deeps, you'll have access to the ruined entrance halls, you'll have a building slot unlocked, and everything else will be covered by blocked tunnels. The number of slots depends on the settlement. Usually you'll have 5 slots available over here, though 4 of them do need to be unlocked by getting the grand entrance holes to tier 3. So at tier 2 you'll get 2 extra slots. At tier 3 you get higher slots. So over here, if I look at this, this can be built relatively fast, so 8 turns from tier 1 to tier 3 over here. They do also give you certain benefits if you are building them. So if I look over here in Grand Peak, where I built my first one, what does this offer? Well, if you build it in a mountain climate, that's the only way to unlock the blocked tunnels from the beginning. So it won't work in any kind of climate from the beginning. You also get High King Decrees. So at tier 2, you'll get 1. At tier 3, you'll get 2. So you have a way of constantly generating High King Decrees, which are only used, based on what I've seen, to construct the Great Gate. So just keep that in mind, keep that aspect in mind over here with this. Now, this main settlement building, so by default, it helps you with discoverability, and very importantly with the Deeps. If there is a Skaven Undercity, If there are various other things, it will not interfere with that. So over there, I had the Skaven Undersea. I just removed it over there from Clan Moors. No problem whatsoever with respect to that. I wonder where Quika is, because, yeah, I know where he is. Because he always takes this freaking settlement in the Desolation of Nagash. Okay, so the regular one just gives you slots. But what about the special cities? Because it is mentioned that you do have unique locations in Zarnagrund, Scaverblight, and Karakate Peaks. What do you get there? Well, depends on what you're talking about. So, with respect to Skaven Blight, you reduce Skaven Corruption by -5. You have 2 more building slots, and all of those building slots are unlocked from Tier 1. Over here, you get 1 control faction-wide. You get the Fang Garrison, you get that in all of them, but you get aggro Skaven Corruption benefit. And you lose diplomatic relations with the Skaven. How horrible. The Skaven Horrid are gonna hate you a bit more. In Karakate Peaks, if we look at this, again, control, but very importantly, you can move your capital to Karakate Peaks, which is something I'm sure a lot of people have waited for a very long time with Belagar specifically. So you get 1 control faction wide, you get that dilemma at tier 3, you get 10 diplomatic relations for dwarves, which is very useful for confederations with a minor dwarf faction. So if you're playing as Belagar, you might just want to rush Karakate Peaks as quickly as possible. It used to not be worth it, because yes, it would give you benefits, but it would strand you right in the middle of enemy territory. Now it might be worth it, because yeah, you get a bunch of experience, you get those diplomatic relations with dwarves, and you can move your capital as well if you want to. I'm sure there's some other benefits with that as well. And as for Zarnagrund, this is the most powerful one by far. Reduces Chaos Undivided Corruption. Corruption is not really too big of a deal. It's easily manageable. But it does give you -10% construction cost to all buildings faction-wide, which is going to stack with your inherent construction cost benefit that you can get for Toolmaker's Guild Bulbs, which I personally prefer building. So either 6 slots or 4 slots. What about non-mountain climate settlements? What happens there? Well, there is a research that you can get which will unlock all those slots. So what this, it is a higher tier research. It does take, let's say 35 turns or so to get construction guilds. This is a great way of handling climate. I'll give them this much. I dislike how they confuse playing tall with playing slow, but this is a great way of handling the climate dilemma. Because on one hand, yes, climate does matter in your campaign. You're going to want to build your initial ones in mountain climate, but later on in your campaign, depending on how you handle your research, and you probably want to get this as quickly as possible. Honestly, you'd probably want to get the population surplus. You get construction guilds, and it removes all block tunnels and all deep locations, and all that construction time benefit is very useful. You can also get some High King decrees through research, so things like High King Authority, Oaths of Loyalty, Grand Throne Chamber do give you various benefits. I'm sure there's some others as well over here, though not in the military tree. So, so already the dwarf tree was really favoring the guilds. Now it's favoring the guilds even further. As for Thorgrim, he does have benefit to High King decrees because, he's the freaking High King. For Ancient Bloodline, you get an extra High King decree. You get another one through High King, and you get the third one through Right the Wrong. So Thorgrim can get 4 High King decrees very, very quickly in this particular campaign. So that's all well and good, all well and nice over here. What kind of benefits are we talking about, though, with the deeps? Is it worth it? Early on, maybe not so much. This is what I mean about confusing tall with slow. Because you're going to want to build regular settlement buildings before you invest in this. This is an investment. It's a long-term investment. You're not just going to want to build these willy-nilly. It's expensive. You can reduce the construction cost by a significant amount, but just keep in mind you're still going to be paying quite a bit of money. In a long campaign, you're probably going to want to build as many of these as quickly as possible. And you probably will be able to build them very, very fast. So what do you get? Well, if we look at, say, Zarnagrund, for instance, over here, let's use that, actually. So you can build the main entrance hall that obviously unlocks more slots, various benefits. You have the magma chambers. This is pretty useful. It does take 5 turns, and unless you have an engineer, and even if you do have an engineer, you're going to suffer in terms of income, you're going to suffer in terms of growth, in terms of control. But once you get the magma chambers at tier 4, this is certainly rewarding playing tall, though it's rewarding you in general. Improves the rarity of items gained from battle. You get magic item drop chance faction-wide, character experience, recruit rank, and unit experience gained per turn. So you can get a lot of experience and items. I don't think the AI is capable of building these. Like, I certainly haven't seen the AI factions building any of these. Like, let's just take a look at a map over here. Like, let's use him. No, we're not seeing any of that. Let's look at Zufbar. Well, Zufbar's been obliterated over there by Vlad, I'm guessing. So if we look at over here, no, the AI is not building these. Maybe the dwarf AI does need the ability of building these, because without, like, it is worth it though. Like in the long term, like especially for the AI, consider this: the AI gets a lot more surplus points, can build, and has so many construction cost benefits and income benefits. They can build these very, very fast. I just think the AI is maybe not scripted at least I haven't seen them do it, right? Like, you know, looking at in 30 turns, none of these factions have built any of them. Like, I Confederate, Belagar, and Forgrim, neither of them had it. Maybe it just doesn't get transferred over with Confederation, I don't know, but Forik doesn't have it, Gormbrindle is dead, and there's no one else to look at, really, in the campaign map, which is a shame. In terms of the structures, there's various benefits and will actually depend on the research you're going for. So if we look at the research tree, you get ruined guild foundries, which can become ornate guild foundries. On the left side, you get guild foundries. So initially, you get some of gold, research rate, construction cost, at the cost of bit control. But that's not a problem. Dwarves have amazing control right now. You get guild foundries, which give you settlement income plus 5% per turn count local region, but the more settlements you own, you lose settlement income 5%. So the more territory you have, the lower it gets. The longer this is up, the better it gets. And you can make this into a tier 3 version. You get some off gold, you get a research rate, recruitment cost, and at the higher level, you get 20 off gold, same research rate, 10% less recruitment cost, and 2 control. Or on the right side, you can get the repurposed guild foundries, which gives you construction cost minus 2% for all buildings, faction-wide, minus 2% upkeep for all units, faction-wide, 20 of gold, 30% research rate, and 5%, just 5% research rate. So I would say this one is probably worth it, though. Don't underestimate the amount of income this could generate. Then you have the ruined counting room. So what this does is it gains income from settlement income. If settlement income is above, say, 2,000 and then goes up to 5,000, you get up to 50% income gain from settlement income. This can be a great way of generating a lot of money from a settlement. Very, very significant over there. Or on the right side, you can't upgrade this to tier 3. You can get the repurposed counting room, growth, research rate, income from all buildings, faction-wide, 5% income, oof. And if you have 50 control or more, minus 1% upkeep for all units, extra growth, extra research. So the dwarves, which already have an amazing level of growth, can get even more. Maybe this is the one you probably want to build up as quickly as possible, as many of these as possible. It can be rewarding if you're willing to spend that early game gold. A lot of dwarf campaigns do have quite a few quest battles. I mean, certainly Forgrim and Ungrim do have it. Maybe Ungrim is a lot better right now because of that. And the benefit there is, like, you would get so much growth, and crucially, you get quite a significant upkeep benefit. So for all so hilariously, I'm not joking on this. Well, CA says it's about benefiting playing tall. There's a lot of benefits for playing wide as well. I mean, there's just benefits in general. Then you have the clan goldsmiths, which the chain on the left gives you income, but at the cost of 100 of gold per turn. If you have more than 100 of gold, it only activates. So it's basically like the Dark Elf idea. If you have a certain amount of slaves, you get extra benefits. If you don't, but yeah. You can get up to 500 income, or at tier 2, you can get off gold. Depends on the income of the settlement. So if you have more than 1,000 income, which is pretty reasonable, you can get 10 off gold, and goes all the way to, though I think it's a bit bugged. Could be a bit wrong, because I'm guessing it should be stacking, or maybe it's only that 10 off gold. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you over there. Let's take a look at Carricade Peaks. Maybe that has more income. No. But let's see what Karake Peaks has to say about this one over here. No, it's still 10 off gold, but it's not triggering. It seems like it's not triggering because, for instance, I have a thing around peak. I'm certainly generating over, you know, 1,000 income, and I have the structure, and it's only giving me 10 off gold in that respect. Okay. Other things over here, you get the Ruined Drinking Hole, where you're going to be using some of that beer, which is fine because you can produce so much beer in a dwarf campaign that you won't even be selling it, so it's not the downside. You get 50 income and free control. If you get Warriors Guild, Toolmakers Guild, and Construction Guild, you get extra income. And then once you get all of those research, you get a very significant benefit over here of 300 income, 7 control, and when any adjacent region is owned by a dwarf faction, excluding your own, which honestly it's a bit of a problem long term, but crucially, you get 1 Thane, 1 Engineer, 1 Rusmith capacity. Could be good to have a Slayer capacity over here somewhere. But basically what this is saying is like, hey, if you keep Zufbar alive as Ungrim, or even Forgrim if you confederate Ungrim, or if you're playing Forgrim, leaving Ungrim for last, you can get a lot of hero capacity for that. Which, honestly, it's not really a big problem for dwarves, but this is certainly good for playing tall because it will give you a lot of extra hero capacity. So you do need Toolmakers Guild, for instance, over here. You do need the Warriors Guild, which is over there. And the third one that you do need, if we look back at the building, so Toolmakers Guild, Construction Guilds, which, yeah, I already... So you do need some fairly deep research in the guilds, and you do need some fairly deep research for the warriors for this one. Then you have under deep trade routes and also under deep mines. Now, the trade routes, if like this is really going to benefit you if you're building next to an adjacent dwarf faction. So Zufbar, Ungrim, great choices over there to use. You get growth. Trade tariff benefit, 10% tradable resources produced at the cost of diplomatic relations with factions that already despise you. But extra, if it's close to another dwarf faction, tradable resources, income from trade tariffs, 30%, research rate, and diplomatic relations with dwarves. The other option is the under deep mine. So this one gives you tradable resources. This one generates the actual trade resources. You get 10 sacks of gemstones, iron, marble, 20 of gold, and the Call the Miner ability in the region with 2 uses. And when the province is not fully controlled, you lose diplomatic relations. Like, it's just like pushing the dwarves to be hated more by factions that already hate them. So basically, this one is only worth building in regions that where you're actually sharing a border. It would be nice to have some research later on where you can get this benefit anyway, but yeah, by that point, you probably don't care, right? Still, it is kind of going to limit you in terms of confederation with Ungrim. But then again, Ungrim is not really a faction you necessarily want to confederate early on. You want to go Grombrindle, you want to go Belegar. Those two, always the best. Forgrim if you're not playing him. Malachi, of course. So Ungrim is kind of like the lowest priority. Like, I'd confederate Forek faster than Ungrim. Also because Ungrim can generally win against these. I can help him out and he can hold the entire northern part. And then finally, those are all infrastructure buildings. The vast majority of these are infrastructure. But then you have strategy buildings. 2 choices. You get Seal the Hold. This affects your diplomatic relations with all factions. Diplomatic relations with dwarves especially. Makes you immune to siege attrition, defensive supplies, 100 gold cost, and if you have very few settlements, extra defensive supplies, ammunition, so 100% ammunition, 10 leadership when under siege. Basically, your guys will be unbreakable if you're attacked, and you get 2 iron breakers as a garrison. You also have the choice of the last Dowie. I don't know if you have, if you're forced to... if you're forced into building this, let me just cancel some buildings, take a look at this. So if we look at the strategy building, you can build both of them. So basically you can make a final stand as the dwarves if you really want to. And that's kind of a nice thing. You don't have, when I say choices, it's like they're not mutually exclusive choices. But anyway, looking at this situation, The settlement will be raised instead of captured if an enemy. Okay, fair enough. But you get 50% post-battle loot, 10 leadership under siege, which probably stacks with the other one. If you have very few settlements, you get immune to psychology, casualty replenishment rate, and control if control is 50 or more, extra leadership, melee defense, and you get the garrison of 4 slayers. Basically make your impregnable settlements even more impregnable. Imagine making a last stand in Karazak, or, you know, Karakay Peaks if you really want to go down that particular path, because it does have a pretty substantial garrison. Getting both these buildings and just like saying screw you. It is not necessarily the worst expense either, like 2,000 gold at this particular point in this campaign. So if you're looking to make a last stand as dwarves, you could have worse options in the world, because like you can get 6 freaking units over here to help you defend when you already have garrisons that can go over 20 units. And that's not even counting the garrison building that you can build upstairs. So significant benefits. It might be useful if for people playing co-op campaigns, if they just want to make an impregnable settlement against their fellow players and tell them, yeah, you want to siege me, good luck with that, essentially. You're not going to win. So that is nice from that perspective. So how do I feel about the system? I'm annoyed by the surplus points and initial gold cost to get the first one built. Like, you already have a limiting factor. Like, what I would say, it would be better, allow us to just build it directly. Don't force us to use a population surplus point. Keep the gold cost and just have you force the player to build, this, like, double the construction time for this, right? For instance. And all of this, because these are like Zarnagrund at the very least is very significant. That's what I would do. That way you would have players investing in these from the beginning, as opposed to having to spend, you know, having to make a decision, like, just screw myself over in the early game for potential long-term benefit. And it's not worth it to screw yourself over. But overall, I do like it. Good system. Could use some tweaking, and yeah, the AI should be able to build these as well. Though I don't know if I don't know how horrific it would be to try and take Karazak. Though maybe it should be very difficult to take Karazak from Forgrim, because like you have so many campaigns where Skarsnik just demolishes him, right? It didn't happen in this one. And just a little spoiler alert, the AI is freaking crazy. You see this army? I didn't recruit this army. Forgrim recruited this army. It is pretty nuts, and in a lot of ways. Actually, I had to disband like 3 full stacks over here. 5, actually, if I'm counting Belegar's armies, because I inherited so much that I was literally going completely bankrupt from that. So yeah, a lot of, like, all these 3 armies you were seeing, that was half of what I actually inherited for Forgrim. Actually, less than half, because I disbanded some units as well in these armies as well. Yeah, the AI is getting big crazy. I mean, I look at Carl over there. Say hello to the real Empire, not the joke it has been so far. Oh boy. Oh boy. Anyway, Costin, signing out.